Welcome to another episode of Dubai Real Estate Unplugged, the official podcast of Haus and Haus. I'm Luke Remington, and today I'm joined by Haider Khan, CEO of Bayut and Dubai and head of Dubai Group MENA. In this episode, we're talking trust issues. It's no secret that Dubai's booming real estate market has had to shake off real estate problems. But in my opinion, it's now one of the most transparent markets in the world. We've come incredibly far since foreign ownership laws were passed in 2002, largely due to government efforts, but there's still some clients' concerns that need addressing. So let's get into it. Haider, thanks ever so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Haider, a little bit about you for those listeners that may not have seen you. You're quite well known around the region. You're in different news publications quite often. But for those listeners maybe that are coming from where you would have been in the US or I'm from in the UK or Europe, a bit more about you.
Sure. I went to school in the U.S. I did my engineering from electrical engineering from University of Texas at Austin. Then I was in Austin for a long time. Mm-hmm. I moved here in 2014 and took over Bayut. It was a very small portal back then, and I've been busy with that. And then along the way, we also picked up Dubai. So that was in 2020. So the last 4 years have been pretty interesting and pretty busy. Trying to get both those platforms out there, clean up stuff, and continue to innovate and launch new things to help the market progress.
Yeah, fantastic. Charlie, Managing Director of Haus and Haus, so you get the concerns of the clients and the concerns of the brokers. So we're just looking into these trust issues. So I want to start off with the real estate market reputation and if we're talking localized, because we're based in Dubai, we're based in the UAE, how do you feel, Haider, if people are coming from outside? You've got fantastic numbers looking at your portals, it's well regulated. How would you feel the customer what's their opinion of this real estate market in Dubai?
Look, I think the numbers kind of speak for themselves, right? If you look at the overall transaction value for Dubai, in the last 4 years post-COVID, we've perhaps seen kind of a 3 to 4x growth in the overall transaction value.
In the transaction value.
In the value, right?
Yeah.
So, which basically translates to in the number of units that are transacting, and price has also gone up.
Yeah.
So it's a combination of that. And then if you look at the 2033 or the D33 agenda that's been set up by His Highness, I think there was a report that came out last week which said the market is going to be, hopefully by then, be $1 trillion dirham market, real estate market, right? So that, if I equate it into dollars, that would be about $273 billion.
Wow.
And not too long ago, we were $30 billion.
Yeah.
So if you just look at that progression, it's 10x.
Yeah.
It's 10 times bigger.
Yeah.
So just think about that for a second.
Yeah.
And let that digest, right? And people are buying, so you could possibly say that, okay, in the early days, when there was perhaps more off-plan and less secondary market, is that investor money? Is that end user money? And I think that balance has also started to shift, right? Where now the secondary market is sizable. And yes, there's a lot of off-plan, but in the next X number of years, 5, 6, 7 years, a lot of that is going to hit the market, and it's going to be absorbed by the increase in population. If you just look at the statistics around those things, all those numbers are going up. Dubai's economy by 2033 is supposed to double. So if you just think about that for a second, right, and that kind of lines up with, okay, real estate needs to double as well from where it is today. So all of those factors are playing in, and as these units get absorbed, it becomes even a bigger secondary market, and the primary market continues to cater to the demand, which is for more people moving into the region. Yeah. So I think it's very well poised. I also, if you look at some of the indices that come out around, like where they talk about bubbles and all of that, right? Dubai is very low on that index. It's in the green area, whereas you'll find cities in the West, in the US, that are on the red, they're overpriced.
Of course.
So price wise, it seems okay. Volume wise, it's excellent right now, and I expect that hopefully, nobody has a magic ball, but I expect that this trend will continue.
Yeah. it's phenomenal figures when you look at it, and it's growth that sometimes I wish I could put myself into. I'd be a different nationality and look at other hotspots around the world and actually be completely neutral and say, without being biased, and I think listeners always think, well, we're going to be biased because we're based in Dubai, and but there is this place, or this place that is equally as good. But really, is there anywhere with the vision and with what's going on and the numbers that you're talking about, Haider, the trillions of dollars, and what's going? It's phenomenal. Is there trust issues generally in people buying property in life that we've inherited from our grandparents and great-grandparents, and we're going to pass on to our children because it's a life expense, and whether you buy in the US or Europe or wherever you're going to buy, you're always going to have some concerns about, is that property available that I looked at online 24 hours ago? Is the agent going to turn up on time? Is the agent going to tell me the truth? Is this just the reputation of the real estate market worldwide?
Yeah, I mean, I can share my own perspective, personal perspective. Look, I mean, I think for a lot of people, for everybody, for most of the people in the world, majority, including myself, when you're buying something like a house, especially if it's your own house, first time you're buying a house, it's the largest purchase you've ever made, or you're about to make, and so. I mean, it's orders of magnitude higher than anything else you bought. I mean, the next closest thing is perhaps a car.
Yeah.
Right. So if you
significant difference,
right? There's a significant, right? I mean, like, what else have you bought, right? I mean, fine, you can have all sorts of stuff here, but it's a car and then a house, or a house and a car, whatever. Now, I think as humans, I think this is probably more psychological, that we need reassurance. And honestly, even if I walk into I have an engineering background, so I'll give you an example. Back in the day, I wanted to buy a TV, and I walked into Best Buy in the US, which is a store where you can buy electronics. I actually know quite a bit about how TVs are made, because I am from that background.
Of course.
But even for me, just talking to a salesperson over there gives you a reassurance, or he'll give you something that you might not have read. I mean, we don't have so much time to read up on everything and be an expert on everything. So you need that reassurance. You need somebody to guide you through the process of what you're buying. These are the benefits. These are not, right? These are opinions based on that person's knowledge. And I think it's very, very important to have that counsel when you're going through the process. When we bought our first house, it took us 9 months to buy the first house in the US. In the US, right? Okay. It took us 9 months. Why? Because I have a bit of a curious mind. Maybe that's my issue, but I wanted to understand everything about how this thing works. And there could be structural issues. Like in the U.S., typically things you'll get structural issues. There could be termite issues. Yeah. So just learning through the process and then actually finding something that you really like, especially if it's a secondary market and all houses are different. Just going through that process, I learned a lot. And who helped me through it? It was the agent.
Okay.
Right. And the file was this big of all the houses that we had seen by the time we bought.
And you probably needed a lawyer to help you.
So the agent took care of all of that stuff.
They do. So it's just the agent. So it's a similar model to Dubai.
Yeah, it is, right? So you have your agent. They'll help you. They'll scout for properties. They'll show you properties, and eventually you like something. They'll help you negotiate the price and go through the process in terms of closing. But without that person, I don't know, I'd be a bit lost, right? So there are some homes that are listed as homes for sale by owner, and if I'm a buyer, I can directly reach out to those people, but I wouldn't know what to do. I would have to go and hire a lawyer in that case. And then what am I really doing? Like, I wouldn't have found out about, like, you should get a structural inspection done for the foundation. Because over time, foundations can settle and move, and maybe this side of the house is an inch lower than the other side, and that could be suggestive of a crack in the foundation. So there's a lot of these things that I would have never found out if I'd just gone alone. And so how do I reassure myself that the biggest purchase I'm about to make, which is orders of magnitude higher than anything else I bought, is going to be a good deal? And I think that's where that counsel comes in, and that's why I think a lot of the agents need to act as counselors and counsel people and help people understand what are they dealing with, and those are the good ones. And then what happens next is when you're ready to sell your house, guess who you're going to pick up and call.
And you've done massively. You know, you've changed the market with Bayut and to Bizzle in giving that trust to the brokers. But before I go to that, Charlie, you're dealing with 200 sales, leasing people, renting, selling, commercial, and all this kind of stuff. Where is the trust issue coming from with the client? And is it as bad as people make out? Or is it just we say it because real estate agents or politicians, or, you know, we're always tarred with the same rushes, you know, we're going to pledge that we're going to do this, and this, and then you get into government or you get into power and then you don't do it. And why is it? Or am I making a mountain out of a molehill? It's actually not that bad an issue.
I just think there's so many moving parts on a property transaction, because you've got a buyer who's a human, you've got an agent who's a human, you've got a seller who's a human, you've got partners that are in the process as well. Everyone's got an opinion. And if you just compare Haider's story there about buying in the US, so if somebody flies into Dubai now, having bought 2-3 properties or 1 property in the US, the process here is so different, and it's so much easier, and there's much less inspection when buying the home. So if we meet Haider today and he has no idea about the buyer market, and I meet him for the first time and I turn up, suit, tie, show him some houses, explain the process, he might naturally think that sounds a bit too easy. That doesn't sound like it's right. So then he's looking to speak to another agent. Then that creates competition when he's looking to buy, and then there's maybe 2 opinions or 3 opinions. So it can seem like it's hard to trust an estate agent or a real estate broker in Dubai, but potentially there's a lot of like preconceptions around how it should work in Dubai, because people are moving here at 25, 30, 35, maybe having bought a property in their home country before coming here, and expect the same level of due diligence throughout the process. But the reality is that this market moves very, very fast, and to get into a contract and buy a house, it can take, if it's cash in cash, it can take 4 days up to 4 weeks. If it's finance, it can take maximum 8 to 10 weeks, really. So that's a surprise for people, and it's like Haider was mentioning, there's a lot of money on the line. So sometimes you want to check and triple check, and from an agent's perspective, or maybe when we're reading reviews, it might sound like people don't trust their agent, but maybe a spin on that is they do trust their agent, but they want to double check it, and that might feel like distrust.
There's billions of dollars, you know, as going through at the moment. How many real estate brokers in the market today? There's got to be 60,000 plus and something 6,000 plus real estate companies. Are they all as good and transparent, or is that just life where we're going to go to a good restaurant, we're going to go to a bad restaurant, and that's part of life, and we can't worry about it too much? But if, like you say, if you're going in to buy your TV, you're probably going to go and look at that one and then that one, and you're going to get a general feel for the person you speak to, and then you've got to understand that I trust this person, and then I'm going to go forward with them, or I don't trust that person. Is that how?
Yeah, I mean, I think key in all of this is building that trust to where you start believing that, or you know for a fact that this person is representing my best interest. And I think that's perhaps key in all of this, because whether I'm a buyer or a seller, what I want to know is that this agent or my agent is representing my best interest. And I think that's where we probably need to focus and understand if how do consumers feel about that. Because again, if I compare to the US market, right, the buyer agent and the seller's agent are separate. So if I'm in the market, I will have a buyer's agent. And then if the seller's in the market, they will have a seller's agent, right? So the way the mechanics are set up, it's very clear that this person is going to help me, and then that person is going to help that, and then so we'll probably meet somewhere in the middle. And that's kind of a unique market in that sense, because a lot of the other markets in the world, you don't have that.
Yeah.
So I think it's really how do you win the trust of the person so that you can make them believe that yes, this person is representing my best interest.
It's a really interesting point, Charlie. Does that cause concern? Do you think? How can I look after Haider as my client if he's looking to buy, but I can also look after Mr. Jones, who's the seller? Because ultimately, I want Haider to buy, I want the seller to sell, because obviously we're in a commission-based. Could this be a fundamental issue of the market?
It comes up for newer residents that move to Dubai and are looking to make a move in property, whether it be on leasing or sales. And I think the key from an agent's perspective is just how to communicate how it works in the market, and it's very, very normal. So once again, they get that reassurance to proceed. The funny thing is as Haider was speaking, it becomes more of a conversation towards the end when there's a conveyancer in the picture and they're conveyancing the deal, and that's where some clients who have predominantly bought in the US say, how can one conveyancing company represent me and the other party? That doesn't make sense. Like, we need to be separate. And that's probably where it's a harder conversation, because it feels more legal, or like more contract obligations need to be met. And that's where clients actually have a longer conversation around how it works here and why it works that way.
Transparency has changed massively. So the only thing I'd say is that needed, because we've got properties that were, a lot of them that have been built, I don't know what the average age of them, but let's say probably in the last kind of 10 years, you know, you've got some older communities like Emirates Living or Arabian Ranches, but you've got some that are going to be handed over later this year or handed over in the last 2 years. So when we talk about foundation issues or maybe dust mites or woodworm or something, it's not typically something that would be cropping up. So does there need, and things can happen quite quickly, so a cash to cash can happen in 4 days here, or a couple of days once you've got an NOC, whereas you're going to get some lawyers in the UK that are going to basically faff around and tell you they're going to do you some work, and they're going to send you a large bill for it, and you're going to think, well, they've done very little for it and there was no banks involved. So we kind of satisfy ourselves by saying, oh, well, we've got someone to look into it, but I don't really need them. Do we need to make it any more difficult and complicate it? Or is that one broker enough for what we need? But we just need to accept that they're looking in my best interests, and it's very transparent.
So I think, again, you know, I feel that a lot of it just really comes down to the human-to-human connection. And do I have that feeling, you know, that I start believing in that you are representing my best interest. And it's a slow process. And I think for all the agents out there, as a consumer, you know, it takes a bit of time. So be patient. Because if you're impatient, then that is a signal to me that, okay, you know, I'd rather be with somebody who's a bit, as I said, the first time I bought a property, it took 9 months. Very patient agent. But guess what? It builds a very strong bond. So I don't need to look elsewhere after that, right? So patience is key, I think, in anything in life, but perhaps in this industry even more so. And always knowing that when I'm talking to you, if I was an agent and I'm talking to you, then I'm making sure that I'm looking out for you. And once you build that strong bond, I don't think you need to win that person again through a portal or through any other means. But understand this about human psychology. And I think the other thing is that it's a very active market right now. It's moving very quickly. Correct. Right? So that also kind of sometimes can confuse consumers. That
will go against the buyer, right? That it's so active.
I mean, it's a seller's market.
Yeah.
Right? So you're going to miss out. And you're going to learn some hard lessons doing that, because you're going to make an offer, you're not going to get it, and then you're going to make another offer, you're not going to get it.
Yeah. And
then you're going to start understanding that, look, you know, I am trying to price it here. The market has already moved on, and this happens. And when you realize that, then you're ready. But it might take a few tries before you get there. So be patient.
There seems to be a massive case of FOMO, Charlie, that we've probably been in for. I've been doing this job since 1997, but I've never seen such probably anxiety or anxiousness amongst families when purchasing or looking, whether it's rentals or purchasing that I need to find in this community because it's within a certain amount of distance of my kids' schooling or my workplace, and there's such a shortage of supply, and it's fear of missing out. So a lot of the clients don't have 9 months to, because they don't have 9 minutes at the moment. It's, if we were talking about Coldplay tickets, Haider, before, you know, we don't have a chance to get these things.
Get in the queue,
isn't it? It's ridiculous how quickly things are going at the moment, Charlie. What advice would you give to buyers at the moment? So they've met their couple of brokers from different real estate companies. Haider and his group have done a superb job in changing the kind of the image from a before, let's go a step before meeting the broker. So you're viewing the portals, you can see their reviews, you can see whether they're, true broker and this kind of stuff. What else could the client do to eliminate some brokers and go with the best ones?
I think a broker that's always giving you an option is probably a good broker, because they've probably got depth of either availability of properties within their business and through their colleagues, or they've got external relationships that can help the buyer see more homes. I think a scary point for a buyer is when you're working with a broker who's like, no, this is the one, you should just take it, there's nothing else out there. And that kind of like stops the conversation, because it doesn't allow the buyer to make an informed decision around what's the right one. And sometimes it might be the right one for the buyer, but they need to see a few more to understand it themselves to be confident to make the purchase. So I think, and like you say, the buyer might not be able to wait 9 months or work with the broker for 9 months, but at the same time, to make their decision quickly, they need to get the information quickly. And I think that's what's really good about this market, is that yes, it is fast paced, but new properties come to market all the time.
Yeah.
A deal might be on one house today, and then by 4 o'clock this afternoon, that's now available to view again. So the right broker that can always provide an option for you to see and consider is probably someone that's worth their weight in gold in this market.
So you can check on the broker, the broker's, true broker, you've got true check, you can check that, and if you've probably seen, or people that haven't seen it, that are just coming to market now, there's a lot less listings that are online now because of the work that you've done with the DLD. To create the transparency, to show that, okay, so if you see it online, we have done our utmost to make sure that this property is actually genuine and it's checked and it's going to be available for you to view. But because there's things happening so quickly, we don't know whether someone has viewed it in the last hour and it subsequently his contract has been signed, because everything is electronic now. So I could view it at 2 o'clock, and I literally could have, if you've got a buyer and a seller sat together, you could potentially have it signed by within 5 minutes, Charlie?
Literally. It literally can be that quick. And sometimes, I don't want to hear this, but sometimes a seller could approach us this afternoon and we don't need to go to the portals because there's a buyer that's waiting and they're ready to go. But then on the backup option of that, when they go to the portals, all of the regulation that the Buyer Land Department have put in place, and then companies such as Bayut have not just stuck to what the Buyer Land Department need, but they take it 2-3 steps further with True Broker or the academy that you guys are running for training. It just helps arm agencies with the ability to provide truer information at a faster pace, which in turn helps such a new market, because there's always new brokers entering. So the stronger the regulations are and the stronger the portals are around managing those and taking it 1-2 steps further, it just helps even the newer brokers come in and not just conduct business, but conduct business in a way that continues to build that trust for buyers, sellers, and international presence.
If I may, I think transparency is key, right? Why? Because if the consumer can educate themselves before they even have the discussion, then it benefits both parties. And so I, as a consumer, want to know everything about the market. I want to make an informed decision. I want to know where the market is. And the better I am equipped with that knowledge, the better I am equipped to deal with whoever the agent also is. So I think it just kind of removes that early education part, where you kind of have to talk to a few brokers to kind of get a picture of the market. So if you have a neutral party, which like us, who can help educate the consumers about this is where the market is, and that's why we launched True Estimate. And I can talk about a couple other things to give you that and the transaction data and the True Estimate. And now I think in a seller's market, you understand the market moves pretty quickly. So whatever you're looking at, even if it's a day old, it's a day old. But having that understanding really helps, I think, speed up the process when you actually do engage with the broker. And if the broker is equally trained and equipped, that's where the big academy comes in. Then that discussion hopefully is pretty short and sweet. Right? So
I can imagine 2014, you've come in and you've obviously changed things around. The market's changed massively with that, and you collab with the DLD. You're sat around with your team and you're looking at giving the customer as much information up front, correct information, and probably being that neutral party, probably being that kind of solicitor to say, well, look, we can, we've done as much research on them as possible. We can do so much, but you must have been around the table discussing this with and bringing in the tech, and now we're going into the AI and stuff like that, to really help the client do as much as possible to understand, well, the person I should meet at 10:30 should be on time, and they should be trustworthy, and they should be genuine, and I know they've sold XYZ number of properties, and I know that they accredited by Bayut. So this is what you guys would have.
Yeah, I mean, if I roll back 10 years, right? I think one thing that we've always held true to is we all exist. Us, you, this whole industry exists as a service industry for the end consumers. So I think one thing that was very clear to me is we have to solve their problems. Because if we don't, then we don't have a reason to exist. And what are their issues, right? So you have to understand, you have to look at things from a consumer's perspective. And now the consumer could be a buyer and seller. We can go into further, on how you deal with both of those. But at the end of the day, you really need to solve the consumer's problems. And for the last 10 years, that's, if you ask me what keeps me up at night, it's more of those things than anything, because everything is a byproduct of that. Highlight the best brokers, give them more clear information around what's happening in the market, what are properties transacting at, what is the value of your house today. It might be an attractive price point for you to maybe consider selling, and then how do we connect you with the best brokers? But it all kind of feeds from that one singularity, which is the consumer.
Do you think in the future, I was actually looking at something this morning, and there was robots working in a warehouse in China. And I even remember going back into the early 2000s, there was a supermarket chain in the UK, Tesco's, that were talking about going into property. And I think at one stage Amazon were talking about going into property. And we've seen all the kind of, okay, we'll sell your house for $100 and we'll send you a signboard and you put it up and we can all deal directly. We do get the industry in general, I think worldwide, I don't know whether we will always eliminate the clients or the customers' issues. We can only do so much. Do you think we'll become obsolete at any stage where brokers don't need to be involved with the way technology is going, even if it's not in our lifetime?
Should I worry about it if it's not in our lifetime?
Well, no, I think from your point of view, you've still got to be seen. The property's got to be seen. So what I'm thinking is the property's got to be seen. So we still need the portals.
Look,
But can I buy? Sorry to interrupt. Can I see that property in Dubai? Can I then reach out to Haider? And can I just buy it through Haider? And then why am I even getting upset or keeping myself up at night thinking I'm dealing with a broker that I don't trust and I see all his good reviews and he's highlighted, but if I don't have a feel, so we get these issues from clients. So are we gonna? Do they need us?
Again, I think this comes down more to human psychology, and that's just my opinion, compared to technology. But I think if there's a time where humans would be reassured by AI bots or robots or whatever you want to call them, then if artificial intelligence actually ever comes close to human intelligence, then who knows what happens at that point, right? But I don't see that. I think there's more to us than just the intelligence. I mean, there's a lot of other things, and I can speak for myself that I would always want to talk to somebody. And I'm not saying this because we work in this industry and I'm trying to, give a picture which kind of, because this is our bread and butter, so I'm trying to paint a picture over here. I genuinely feel that there's more to human connections than just what comes out of the mouth.
100%. I agree. And I think that was, I was thinking about an issue I had while I was away last week with, I had a bit of fraud go on my credit cards. And I tried to cancel my credit card, and it was the most painful experience being in a foreign country, trying to press one to go through to this, then go through and, my voice is my password and it doesn't recognize your voice because your signal's not good in the area you're in. And in this time, you've got someone scamming your card more and more. So I suppose companies may look at taking away that human element for cost purposes or whatever it may be, but there is still that human interaction that we need to see. Plans going forward, Haider, I don't know what you could share, but you mentioned about true estimate and this kind of stuff, and that could give the listener an idea about where else we're going with things with this AI technology, and you guys being such a large technology company.
I mean, I think it really comes down. So true estimate is a report that you can generate to give you an estimate of where your property is today in terms of value. And we have about 8 different models, machine learning models that run in the back, and then we combine those to give you an estimate. But a lot of it is based on recent transaction history, similar transactions, listing prices, etc., and supply demand. And we try to take all of that into account and spit out a value. And what we've seen is that that value perhaps is higher than the last transacted value for that kind of property, but also perhaps a little lower than what people are asking for. And I think this is kind of also reflective of the seller's market. So hopefully it helps bridge that gap and set expectations, because we're just trying to build the best tech.
And this is instantaneous.
It's instantaneous, right? It's instantaneous, right?
It's good. It's crazy.
So and you can go there. You can specify your title deed. You can specify your DIVA number, or you can specify the unit number, and then it just spits out a report, and then it shows you not only just the estimate, but it shows you the cost to buy, it shows you the rental yield, it shows you similar properties that have been recently been sold or transacted, and then what's in the market right now. So it kind of gives you a 360 view of everything that's happening. And the question is why, right? So one is to build transparency for buyers, but also I believe one of the key things over here, and the journey for a lot of the brokers doesn't start with, I have a buyer's lead. I think it starts with, I have a seller also, right? So how do you find those people who are not in the market? I don't know if anybody ever is in the market. Like, okay, sometimes you have circumstances where you say, okay, I need to sell my house. But a lot of times, some people might get a report and see, okay, this is appreciated quite a bit, and it's a good time to, if it's an investment, or even if it's your own house, maybe it's time to
and
get rid of it, right?
That's so common in Dubai, because it's normally not like the primary residence. Normally it's like the second, third, fourth, fifth home.
I've made enough on it. It's time, so let me reach out to some brokers, right? So if I have a true estimate report, and I want to reach out to a broker, what better place than to actually maybe show some true brokers on the true estimate report to let them reach out to those people, because those are the best people in this area who can help you sell this. So again, if you go back to the problems we're trying to solve, we're also, and it solves it for the industry as well as the consumers, which is how do we connect those people without hitting the phones too hard or WhatsApp or whatever it is? How do we get those people? Because that would be perhaps a more ready seller than trying to just find a needle in a haystack.
But we're obsessed as world with property, aren't we? We're obsessed with property. And I actually read on the news when I was in the UK, because everyone tends to watch the news. Maybe that's the reason I was a bit more depressed in the UK. But there was actually someone was diagnosed with an issue where she had no intentions of buying. She had no intentions of renting. But she actually had an addiction to open up the property portals after getting home from work, and she'd done it for a period of, say, 15 years. Whether you want to call it nosy, looking into someone's bedroom, or whether you want to look at someone's garden, whether you want to get tips or ideas. So we are a nation of, we're just curious, and we want to see what people's properties are. We can gauge, that looks like mine, and it's getting that price. Wow. Is Dubai unique in that way that it seems, I remember years and years ago, someone said, everything's for sale, Luke, at the right price. And I was thinking, well, yeah, but is it? If I don't want to sell it, I don't want to sell it. But will you sell it if someone's going to offer you X, Y, Z, and we're in this ridiculously buoyant market, and we're in a superb country that we really can't compare with many places else in the world? Where else would you like to be other than Dubai? It's very difficult to choose. So at the moment, Charlie, would you say there's people pushed into selling because they're just getting this great price and everything is open to offers?
It comes back to the agent being able to provide an option. So if I call Haider today and he's making 30% profit on what he paid for his property 18 months ago, that's great. But if he lives in the home, he needs an option of where to go next. And I think if you can package it up in the sense of, hey, we sold you this, you're going to make 30%, it's been 18 months, 2 years, 3 years, it's a really good idea to sell. But then you leave it there, it's kind of a hard no, because it's like, well, I live here, I need someone to sleep tonight. So, but if then you provide an option, and now we're looking at this, and this will be a really good option for these 6-7 reasons, and it marries with that family or that person, it becomes an easy yes. So what you'll find is that good agents do create opportunities to make a sale, but it's a package. It's not just, hey, you've made money, do you want to sell today? It's, hey, you've made money, that's great, let's move that money now into this and continue to progress through the market and have a little bit of a journey on real estate as opposed to just a hard stop.
The numbers, Haider, I would have thought, with what you're seeing, the traffic that are going to the websites at the moment for buyers. I think buyers last month, we had something like 8,000 buyers register with us as a company, and you've got your 6,000 plus companies. So there's a lot of buyers out there now. I know a lot of them could be duplicated, and everyone's got different budgets and different requirements. But you know, you can look online. I can see, well, if I'm looking at this house, I remember, I think it was a couple of years ago when you launched, where I could actually then find out the travelling time between A and B. And it's phenomenal that 2 years ago we were talking about that, and now we're moving on to look at, we can get the values within seconds of our properties. It's incredible where we're going to go in the future. 20 years from now. Any predictions?
No, I think hopefully we'll continue to make this an easier process, right? And put a lot of the information on the fingertips of both brokers and consumers alike. So a lot of the friction that we were talking about earlier perhaps doesn't exist. And you create more awareness amongst even consumers. We're working with the DLD on some initiatives on how we can even not just educate the brokers, but also consumers. And these changes continue to happen, where if we can continue on that path, I feel the more knowledgeable people are, the easier things will get, right? But again, I think if we can solve both for the sellers and the buyers, and I think a lot of work has happened generally across the world for buyers. There's less that's been done for sellers, right? And so we're pretty focused on that. How do we connect the sellers to the best brokers?
Why did you that's my last question. Why do you think that is? Why has more a focus gone into buyers worldwide then? Because I can understand that probably if we look at Dubai, because the traffic coming in here, we've got, the population growth, we're going to double, trying to get up to 7 million, and but why would it, if you're talking worldwide, would you say?
If I take the US as an example, or perhaps the UK, right? If you're going to sell, that's probably perhaps more of a local problem. You walk up to your high street or your neighborhood, and you find the agent, or you ask your friend who also lives in the neighborhood who's a good agent. Whereas the buyers are going to come from everywhere in England or everywhere in the US, right? So a lot of focus has gone on how do we aggregate buyers from not even just the city or the country, even outside. But Dubai is an interesting setup over here, right? Because, okay, here's Dubai and here's, X number of brokers. And so how do you match, it's one big neighborhood. How do you match the best brokers with the sellers who are looking to sell? So I think it's a bit of a unique problem. But having said that, I don't think it's unique to Dubai. I think it's also can be solved for other countries. Even if it's your high street shop, how do you know who's the best within that high street shop, right? Or which high street shop is the right one to go to? How do you solve that problem?
No, it's interesting. And we were talking as well as Coldplay tickets. We were talking about keeping ourselves up at night, Haider. So we've got plenty more nights to stay up at night wondering.
We've got enough light here, so I think.
Exactly. You and I both. So
worse, guys.
we will look to. I think it's remarkable. I know. We speak to you guys very often. We're dealing with, I know Charlie in particular speaking to the account managers, and we're looking at doing what we can do internally as a real estate company to improve the journey for the client. And we know that from speaking to the account managers from Bayut and Bizzle, you're looking massively at what you can do from your side. And we've seen that with the way not just the websites have grown, but the transaction, the traffic that goes to it. So credit to you.
Thank you so much.
That's it for today's episode. And thank you for joining us on Dubai Real Estate Unplugged. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. My pleasure. All right, thanks.